into open session.
So let me start by saying good evening to everyone and welcome to our second Zoom meeting of the South Orange County Community College District Board of Trustees. We once again ask for your patience as we navigate this platform. Please be advised that everyone participating via Zoom video call has been muted with the exception of Trustees TJ Prendergast, Tim Jamal, James Wright, David Lang, Barbara J., Marcia Milchiker, Terry Witt Rydell, and student trustee Martha Odiarski. I'd like to turn the meeting over to President Prendergast, and he will call the meeting to order.
Right.
Okay, do we need to do a roll call again?
Yes. Trustee Prendergast.
Present.
Trustee Jamal.
Here.
Trustee Wright. Can we see him on the screen? Maybe he can
Yes,
raise
we can
his
see
hand.
him. We can see him.
Wait.
Yes, okay. Trustee Jay.
Present.
Trustee Lang.
Here.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye. Here.
Trustee Whitwell.
Here.
Trustee Udias, student trustee Udiaste.
Present.
Okay. So next we have actions taken in closed session.
I have those. On a 7-0 roll call vote in closed session, the board voted to issue a notice of rejection of claim regarding claim number 556881 pursuant to Government Code Section 913. The governing board further authorizes the chancellor or designee to issue any appropriate notices. And also on a vote of 7-0, roll call, in closed session, the board voted to issue a notice of rejection of claim regarding claim number 583008 pursuant to Government Code Section 913. The governing board further authorizes the chancellor or designee to issue any appropriate notices.
Okay. With that, we have an invocation by Trustee Jay and Pledge of Allegiance by Trustee Jay.
Could you please bow your heads? Our Heavenly Father, we come to you in gratitude for our many blessings. We are so thankful for our wonderful administrators, faculty, classified, and police officers who have given so much of themselves and have worked together to help our students and institution get through this pandemic. We are so grateful for everyone working together to get our classes online and available to our community. We are grateful for the incredible, unselfish, and hard work shown by those involved in donating to our support programs and foundations, for their effort in providing emergency help and funds for our students and employees. Help us as a board to bring the colleges together to get through this challenging time and to serve as best as we can for our students. Please bless and watch over our students, staff, and community. Help our nation to come together in this time of crisis with freedom, health, and justice for all. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Please join with me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to
to the flag
Flag.
of the United States of America,
and to
the
Republic for which it stands, nation
one
under
nation,
God,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next we have any request for public comments.
We do have one public comment. Pursuant to item 6.6, I would like to commend the Irvine Valley College Foundation Office, particularly Director Alyssa Aramsky, for the incredible work they have been doing to support our campus community in these uncertain times. from keeping in constant contact with involved parties, offering real and meaningful opportunities for collaboration and transparent decision-making, to streamlining processes and raising funds to ensure access to emergency financial relief for our most at-risk students. Alyssa and her team have represented the most core values of our district and campus. I hope everyone will join me in applauding their tremendous and conscientious efforts. Thank you, Dr. Virginia Shank, Faculty Editor of the Year.
Great lady.
Okay. Next, we have oral reports from student trustee Uriarte.
Maybe skip and come back to her, TJ.
Okay. Next, if we have anyone from Associated Student Governments, see Ferraz.
Hello?
Hello.
All right. I don't know if my camera is working, but I'm just going to go ahead and give my report here. So in regards to what ASIVC has been working on, we've been working on collaborating amongst each other in order to create a sort of environment that allows for student leaders to remember to be serving their students. In regards to that, we have our public relations committee has actually pursued a really exciting initiative in establishing our first ever magazine, which would allow students on campus, new returning, to understand what programs we offer on campus, what our ASIVC access code offers, and so much more, new incoming student leaders, out incoming student leaders, initiatives and stuff like that. As well as working alongside our finance committee, myself and a couple other student leaders, senators, and few vice presidents have worked on crafting our 20 to 2021 budget, which we're very excited to be presenting, I believe, next meeting. Yeah, and it's pretty exciting stuff that we've all been working on in order to make sure that we our roles and keep ourselves busy in challenging times. In regards to the last comment I would have to make, I would like to give a big thank you to our interim director, Dr. Jen, who's been guiding us a lot in our initiatives that we've been trying to accomplish. It's been a little bit hard trying to understand how to host a meeting on Zoom, but we've been making it work pretty well. So a big thank you to Dr. Jen and a lot of the student leaders out there who've been working together in completing our initiatives for the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have, looks like Jake Robertchick.
Can you hear me, guys? Everything's good?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want to start off by saying it's absolutely an honor to be here. What a great age where we can all come together virtually. So I just want to kind of talk about what we've been doing. We, of course, have been respecting this quarantine time, and we've been doing all of our ASG functions through Zoom. We've been working recently on creating our tentative budget, which Frost has mentioned we will be hopefully approving in this upcoming May trustee election. We're really trying to make sure that we have all the resources for not just ASG, but for all the divisions going into next year. We've also been working with our new elected executive team, our new president, who's going to be Adam Brownell, and he's absolutely great. We're really excited to be able to have this downtime to do the training necessary to make sure that when he fully transitions into his role, he'll be able to execute it successfully, and that his team is able to do the same as well. I just want to finish off by congratulating our SC Robotics rover team, who made it into the top 36 of 92
Wow.
universities. Last year, when I served as the director of budget, we were able to fund them. And this year, under my administration, we're able to fund them again. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 crisis, the competition will not go any further, but we're still extremely proud that they're able to make it that far against top universities, top private institutions. So congratulations to them. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like we have student trustee Uriarte back.
Yes, Thank you very much. Apologize for the interruption. I would like to thank everyone for the support that I have received during this year as a student trustee. Today is my last meeting.
I got it.
And I have learned so much about the administrative process and the roles of trustees and the student body for both colleges and the many hours of efforts and sacrifices of their personal time in favor of all the students. Thank you very much for the resolution. I appreciate the recognition. Thank you very much for Dr. Stern, Marcia Milchiker, Trustee Jamal for the recommendations that I have received. Thank you very much. It just helped me to, to keep going with my academic goals. I would like to highlight the efforts of the health department, the health department that at Saddleback College that were one of the first responders in donating gloves and masks to Mission Hospital, which were like nurses that need all those equipment. I would like to thank President Stern for hosting the virtual student forum. I joined them, and during these stressful times that cause a lot of anxiety because of the uncertainty of the continuance of our courses and academic goals, Dr. Stern just firmly shared his commitments to continue our educational path and the support. I would like to thank also for Saddleback College and Irvine Valley College for taking this immediate action and then contribute with a loan of laptops for students. As you guys know that many students, we enroll in community college because we cannot afford other institutions that cost like more than $46 per credit. And these laptops are very useful, especially, for example, when only have one, two, laptops or tablets. In my case, for example, I'm homeschooling kids, and each one need their own devices, and I need one. So sharing those, laptops sometimes is not efficient. So many thanks for that. Also, I would like to thank for the food distribution centers that they keep helping Saddleback College students and Irvine Valley College students with the food distributions. Many students rely on those resources to help with their food budget, and so they can keep studying, paying rent, and continue their educational goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we have discussion items. There were no board requests for reports. Discussion item 4.1, district-wide strategic plan.
So while we get Denise up and she's ready to do her presentation, I'd like to make a few comments about the strategic plan that you're going to be looking at this evening. As you know from your own involvement in the planning process, it's been over a year that this project has been in the works, certainly long before the existence of this coronavirus or COVID-19. And what may strike you about this plan, and this is a 5-year plan starting this year and going until 2025, is that there is no mention of COVID-19 because it didn't exist as we were drafting the plan. It was set to be presented to you last month, but when we so quickly switched from a face-to-face meeting to a Zoom meeting, we didn't want to put the added stress of you having the due diligence that you need to review and approve this plan in that first Zoom meeting. So I made the decision to push this off until this meeting. But we can't really wait too much longer because our former plan ended in December 2019. And we need this new plan for continuity in terms of making sure that we stay compliant with our strategic planning and that we're meeting accreditation standards. So this is in front of you tonight with my guarantee, and I'm sure that the colleges will agree with this, that this is a living plan, that we will look at this plan certainly on an annual basis, and that among the strategies, the goals are broad because we always want to meet our mission, which is really about student achievement, whether it's degree, certificate, upskill training, or lifelong learning. We will be considering the impacts of COVID-19, this extension of broad online learning, the impact on our career and technical education, those classes that really need to be face-to-face or at least partially face-to-face as we move forward, and all of the attendant impacts that will have on our facilities planning and moving into the future. But to hold this up any further when we have Ed Master Plan scheduled to come to you in June, and then the Facilities Master Plan coming in July, we want to stay on our planning track and then make sure that we address all of those concerns and everything that we learn about COVID-19 moving forward. I also think that we'll have the benefit by approving this now and moving forward on these plans for student learning and success and achievement, for having some hindsight, not still being in the middle of this crisis, and being able to look back on what we learned. I mean, we're still learning every day what this means to all of us. So it would be even difficult at this moment in time for us to be able to revise the strategic plan in a meaningful way because there's so much we still don't know. So I recommend to you tonight that you approve this with our guarantee that we will look at it and make sure that COVID-19 and its attendant impacts are addressed as we move forward.
Thank you.
And I give it over to Denise.
Good evening, trustees. I'm Denise Ensiong. It's nice to see you via Zoom, District Director of Research Planning and Data Management. So as Chancellor Burke explained, I'm going to walk through really highlighting this planning document that we've been working on for the last year and a half. So thank you. Next slide. Just as a recap, you've been involved in our planning process, but the strategic and education master plans are really overarching documents that are developed to really ground our educational needs of the community we serve, articulate a vision for student achievement and success. It guides the development of our programs and services. And as Chancellor mentioned, it will also provide direction for our facilities plan, staffing plans, and technology plans, and all related planning documents. Next slide, please. So just a general agenda of what I'll cover tonight is how we framed our planning processes, really highlighting some of the background and data collection, the environmental scan, framing around statewide goals, board goals, how we developed our shared priorities, and those evolved into the strategic plan goals, objectives, and indicators, and then sort of end with recapping on what our overall planning framework is and the next steps. Next slide, please. So as you might recall, this process, we embarked probably at the end of 2018, where we engaged with MIG Consultancy. And if you remember this graphic, this was sort of the phased approach that we were taking for the entire education master and strategic plans. The first phase was around gathering data, really developing our scan, internal, external. Then the next phase that went through the end of spring through the summer was around shaping our priorities and creating the goals and objectives. And the last phase, which has dovetailed with the district-wide plan, is the education master plans. A lot of that data gathering and priorities are also part of the education master plan. Next slide, please. So what you have in your packet is two documents, and the document with the orange covers the environmental scan, and that's a pretty hardy document. It's about a few hundred pages, but it's all of the data that was gathered internally and externally, population and demographic trends, employment projections, business growth, statewide and community trends, student enrollment, success factors, outcomes. I'll highlight a little bit more about how all that was gathered in a future slide. But this data really set the foundation. Really, we were able to ground our decisions in information and data gathered from this scan. Next slide, please. So the scan has a lot of data, a lot of detail, but we wanted to share just and recap some of the highlights, which you probably heard over the last year when you engaged with MIG, when we developed our or refreshed the board goals. But these are some highlights here. We know that we have an increase in Latinx population. We know that there's a decline in K-12 and a big growth in our adult population, 75 years and older. We have identified key industries in our county, being IT, biotech, healthcare, and we also see emerging occupations in the green economy and technology of healthcare. We know that there's growth in middle skill jobs and a need for post-secondary training, an increase in the workplace for data and technology, and that was pre-COVID-19 before this slide was created. But we also see an increase in first generation and economically disadvantaged first-time college students. So you'll see we really are looking at our disadvantaged populations and students that really need support. Online education has grown almost 30% over the last 5 years. And again, as Chancellor Burke said, these will be updated as we move forward. This data will always be annually refreshed. And last but not least, a real increase in degrees, certificates, and transfers in the last 5 years. Next slide, please. So in our process, in gathering all this data, we also wanted to make sure we were framing our priorities with the priorities all around us. So what you see here is your goals, your new goals that you established in January, and I won't go into them. You're very familiar with these goals, but it was really part of our process. As you remember, we looked at incorporated your setting of goals, how it incorporated the vision for success. It incorporated the student success funding formula focused on completion metrics. It also is part of our guided pathways, equity plans, and really understanding where we came from in our last district-wide plan to where we want to continue to grow, or new areas of growth. So those are pieces that framed our plan. Next slide, please. So this slide is really about the process of the district-wide planning, strategic plan, and the education master plan. As I mentioned, we had a lot of data gathering, as well as going into the community to hear and listen to priorities at the campuses and around us, our community members. 1,000 participants gave back information in our community survey. We had from the colleges 150 programs and service assessments providing perspectives on their programs. We conducted 2 all-day focus groups at each college, really targeting all different constituency groups and topical area groups to understand what was happening at the campuses. You also, if you remember, we had 2 Board of Trustees planning sessions where we checked in with you, sort of gave you the data, and also made sure we were gauging what your priorities were as well. Additionally, we had a district-wide planning charrette that had over 80 participants, and the pictures you see here are from that charrette, really rolling up our sleeves and trying to understand how are we synthesizing this data for our own priorities for the district and college. Additionally, just 50 plus hours of district-wide planning meetings. And just to recap, the District-Wide Planning Council is the shared participatory governance council that guides this plan. And on top of that, lots of calls with consultancy to make sure they were keeping on track with this planning process. Thank you. Next slide. So how do we get all this data into the plan? After the planning charrettes and all of the planning meetings in the spring, we came together in the summer right before everyone left and narrowed down 10 big themes, as you see here, to 5 goals and 38 objectives. And we sort of went around to try to understand how are we going to create a plan that everyone can fit under, that we can get the objectives, which will be fulfilling the goals in line with all of these priorities and data that we've collected. So from that, over the summer, we brought back to the council in the fall as we continued our discussion. And you can go to the next slide, please. To what you will see in the planning document, which is 4 goals and 29 objectives that articulates each goal. Goal 1 is ensure student equity in access and achievement. Goal 2 is transform lives through learning and achievement. Goal 3 is engage with the community in economic prosperity, civic events, and cultural activities. And goal 4 is optimize our institutional design and structure with the student-centered focus. And so in the next slides, I'll highlight kind of all of the objectives that will then work towards accomplishing these goals. Next slide, please. So as I'm reviewing the goals and objectives, just the color cue, what's in green is part of the board's goals and also the vision for success. So just to see where they are articulated in the objectives of each goal. So again, student equity is the focus of goal 1. You'll see it is a primary focus of the district and campus to eliminate those achievement gaps for students who are struggling and need that support, who've been underrepresented. And around the achievement, it's transfer level English and math, it's all of the completion metrics, the gaps, and making sure that they're staying on the path, retaining them from term to term in our campuses. And additionally, in terms of equity, it's creating that environment. So it's faculty and staff really being culturally responsive and inclusive in our working environment. So those are the objectives that we have outlined to fulfill goal 1. Next slide, please. So goal 2 is transform lives through learning and achievement. And this goal, as you'll see all the ones highlighted in green are the ones around completion, the vision for success, degrees, certificates, transfer, CTE, employment, career tracked, occupational certificates and degrees being tracked for employment. Reducing the number of average units, we want to make sure that they're efficiently getting through and completing in a timely manner. So the goals around here are really around those metrics and also not just our degree and certificate seeking students, but even the non-traditional students, and creating an environment that's open to learning opportunities and educating the whole student, supporting interdisciplinary learning opportunities and professional development for staff. So those are all objectives we've outlined as important to creating and achieving goal 2. Next slide, please. So goal 3 is engage with the community through athletic, cultural events, enrichment programs, and creating economic prosperity. This goal is really around our community. It has a lot of components in it, but it's around strengthening our engagement opportunities with our businesses, our regional, supporting the regional economy, extended learning, community, adult education, emeritus, and really looking out for our partnerships, high school, our K-12 partners, as well as our higher education partners. So goal 3 is all about achieving engagement with the community. Next slide, please. And our final goal is optimize our institutional design and structure with a student-centered focus. This goal is about really looking at our policies, practices, procedures, and as we mentioned, facilities and technology is a big component in our processes. Being efficient and effective in our resources. That's, I think, where you also see the connection to the facilities master plan that will come before in the next upcoming months, and technology in the latter months. We know that in addition to that, we need to make sure we have a collaborative culture. And we've learned that throughout the years that we're always better when we understand each other. So you'll see these objectives about participatory governance and collaboration as a key piece of our institutional design. And also, as you'll see, student-centered always, and the vision for ATEP and the campuses, how do we envision building out that campus further? Next slide, please. So those are the 4 goals, how we are identifying the objectives to achieve those goals. But I would be remiss if I didn't really highlight that we always want measurement, and we want to make sure we're measuring our progress. So in the district-wide plan in Appendix C, there's a lot of metrics. So we've identified a work plan. Some of these are already established, like the Vision for Success metrics that the state has methodologies for. I'm working with the college research offices and my office to really establish agreed upon methodologies, baselines, and every year when we're doing our measurement, we'll provide that to the board as well. Next slide, please. Sort of summing up the presentation, this was a fairly new process for the district. The district-wide strategic plan had evolved into a shared collaborative process, but this process with the master planning and facilities is a real new process. So this graphic here just kind of showcases how our district-wide strategic plan kind of touches on all of us, district services as well. Our support plans will be guided by this framework, but that it also helps the colleges develop their education master plans, their own strategic plans to operationalize these goals, and their related plans like facilities and technology. Next slide, please. And my last slide is just that this is sort of the one of a few more presentations you'll see on planning at the June board meeting. The education master plans will be coming forward to you. And MIG will come back to kind of close their consultancy with us with those plans, and the facilities plans would follow after. Thank you. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, so at this point, we'll go ahead and move forward with a motion and a second on 6.1, which is to approve the master plan.
So moved.
And a motion
Second.
from Trustee Jamal and a second from Trustee Wright. So with that, I believe Trustee Jamal. Question. All right.
All right. I want to thank the Chancellor for acknowledging we don't have cognitive dissonance and we're aware of COVID-19 and that things are going to change. So it's obviously one thing that I think other people had on their minds. I just had a couple of questions. Denise, you mentioned IT, biotech, and healthcare. I'm just wondering, I know it's COVID-19, but what about hospitality and culinary?
You know, I didn't pull those out, but those were big trends as well. I just kind of pulled some of the highlights, but you'll see that in the environmental scan. It is, those are industries that are big and growing for us as well, that the campuses are looking at within their program and education master plans.
Great. And then the other thing was, I know it's a living document, but I'm just wondering, anyone or the Chancellor, you know, what would be the impact on student equity with a proliferation of online learning at Saddleback and IVC? What are the impacts of that? What do we think they might be?
Does Denise want to take that? Denise, do you?
I'll start a little. I know at the state chancellor's office, we are really keenly watching some of the sessions they're holding, because we know that in other populations, those are keenly affected populations when they don't have devices or access. And I'll let the chancellor talk about the campuses. I'm sensing that that's going to be an important piece of the technology and facilities plans as we move forward, to look at our access points and tools that students have available to them.
Elliot, did you want to add something?
Sure. Only that I think we are actively learning already about how COVID-19 is going to influence our own college plan, and specifically in regard to access. Denise alluded to access issues related to technology, and we're certainly seeing that not only in the laptops that have been handed out, but in the number of applications we're getting for CARES Act grants. And many of those ask the students what they need, and we're seeing a lot of responses about technology. Increasingly, we're having more discussion about Wi-Fi access. So I think equity cuts across a lot of different things, and I think COVID-19 has made us very alert of how that affects learning, particularly in a distance ed environment.
Thanks for that.
Okay, just a procedure for the trustees. Trustee Lang is next. You want to send me a note in the chat for me to know that you want to speak, because the grid view, I can't see everyone because of the presentation mode, just for procedure's sake. So Trustee Lang.
Yes, thank you. I know I had many of the same concerns. I think that Trustee Jamal has already mentioned and had some emails back and forth with the chancellor about this matter. And obviously we're developing a planning document that's supposed to be for really a future looking document, and without it addressing or acknowledging COVID-19, I was quite concerned. I think I suggested, and I think the chancellor has agreed, to put something in her introductory remarks that speaks to that, my concerns, and I think some of the other concerns that I've mentioned. And so I think that would be very appropriate, and I look forward to seeing that. The only other amendment that I would make is on Exhibit A of 6.1, page 9 of 60. I would really like to see Irvine added to the service areas.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Good catch.
How did I miss that? Okay. I will make sure we correct that.
All right, Trustee Milchker was next.
Okay, thank you. I thought that was excellent. I'm really glad that of all the collaboration that went into it, and the charrettes and the input of so many different constituents in the community college district, of Irvine Valley College and Saddleback College in the district. I'm wondering, Trustee Lang mentioned there were 60 pages in his report, and I'm getting mine on the district website, and there's only 17 pages in the PowerPoint presentation. So did we get a copy of the environmental scan at all?
If you'd like to,
Yes,
TJ, I can comment on it.
Yeah, Marcia, it's under 6.1.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
And Exhibit A has 60 pages to it.
Okay,
Yeah, look at 6.1, not 4.1.
okay.
Okay, anybody else? All right, seeing no more requests to speak, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote on the item.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Whit-Rydell. Student trustee Uriarte.
Aye.
Okay, are you voting?
Yes, aye.
Okay, thank you. All right. So next we have, thank you very much, Dean.
Thank you.
Oh, you still have more?
There we go again.
Who do we need still?
Trustee Wright.
Right.
Well,
Aye.
aye, okay. Is that it? All right, now we've lost the presentation. So next, thank you again, Denise, for the presentation.
Thank
Now
you.
we have 4.2, looking at basic aid allocation recommendation. Mark.
Good evening, this is Kim McCord, Executive Director of Fiscal Services. All right, so I'll walk you through our basic aid recommendation for the next fiscal year. Great. So BARC is our basic aid allocation recommendation committee. It's our district-wide participatory committee who's responsible for making these recommendations. They met during the spring and they reviewed our district-wide and college plans and all the funding priorities that were set by the colleges and district services for technology and capital outlay projects. Our total recommendation this year is $95.7 million. And these have been approved by the chancellor and the college presidents. And it was a really good process again. So first of all, we determined how much money we have available for our allocation. And first thing is our estimated balance for July 1st of 20. And that consists of our contingency that we set up last year or for the current year. It has funds that we've returned from our closed projects. We normally do that every spring. And then it also includes excess property taxes. So we estimate a little conservative, and it looks like our taxes are coming in higher. So those additional funds that we know about right now are also built into that estimated ending balance. The next line, basic aid receipts, oops, not yet. Oops. Go back, there we go. The estimated receipts is 91.6 million. So that's the excess taxes above our operational revenues. And then we reset our contingency of 18.3 million, which leaves us the 95.7 million for available to allocate. Now this year we are watching our property taxes very closely. We've been monitoring the county deposits. We are at almost 97% for our secured property taxes right now in collections. So we're doing really well. We're on the county teeter plan, collected them by June 30th. They actually make that allocation to us and they collect them and keep the penalties and the interest when they eventually collect those. So we don't anticipate any problems with our tax receipts for this year. Okay, next slide. So this is a summary of our allocations from our long-term obligation. 11 capital projects, almost 8.6 million. We have over 11 million in scheduled maintenance and renovation projects, and then 16 million for technology for the total of 95.7. Next slide. So for our long-term obligations and fixed expense, we have our annual obligation for retiree benefits. It's 5.2 based on the actuarial study we just completed. We are putting 5 million into our pension rate stabilization program to keep it going. We have elections this fall, so we've got money
To be.
credit card and bank fees that are the costing our enrollment fees that are part of our funding.
Okay, I will jump in and continue the presentation then. So as far as our long-term obligations and our fixed expenses, the credit card and bank fees is something that we've had in there each year. It is going up slightly And then we have the legislative advocacy for 130,000. So the total of the long-term obligations and fixed expenses is, as you see there, 11.7 million. So now moving into our basic aid recommendations, we have our capital project recommendations. And the IVC Fine Arts Building is on here for just under $6 million. Then we have the IVC Student Services Center renovation for $13.2 million. This is the second augmentation to this budget that's a multi-year budget for this. We had some leftover funding in the B400 and we're transferring that $100,000 to the access control account where it's going to be spent. And then you can see we have the athletic stadium for Saddleback College at $5.6 million. Our Gateway building at Saddleback College is $6.8 million. And as you recall, both the Gateway building and the Fine Arts building are the two projects that are partially state funded. So those are what is left in order to get those buildings up and running. We have our ATAF building, which is the new building that's going in right now, as well as the tennis court center and the partial loop road. So that 5.1 million is really the additional funds for the tennis project and the partial loop road that wasn't originally in the ATAF building. But in order for efficiencies and to help with the vehicular and pedestrian access, we added that into the project. So that's what that's for. We have the ATEP building for Saddleback College, their first building, $4.7 million allocation going towards that. Then we have the science math building, which again, we're trying to get state funding for. If we do get state funding on the science math building, that would come through in the 21-22 fiscal year. Hopefully it's looking like that one may actually get funded. So we're still hopeful for that. And then we have the Student Services Center renovation at Saddleback College. Once the Gateway building opens up, a big chunk of what's in the existing Student Service Center will have moved. And so then it'll give us the opportunity to renovate the existing Student Service Center. And then lastly is the village demolition. So this is the demolition of the modular buildings at Saddleback College that will be able to demolish several of those once both the ATAF building and the Gateway building open up. So the subtotal for capital projects is $50.6 million. Kim, are you back on?
She dropped off.
Oh, then she dropped off again. Okay. I saw her, now she's gone, so I'll keep going. Next, for the basic aid, we have the district-wide technology master plan, $333,000. We're getting ready to do the RFP for that, and so that's the last piece of our planning that will tie into the strategic plan as well as the education plan and the facilities plan. We have access controls and ADA projects. So we have the $3 million annual allocation that we're making for our ADA improvements. And then access control projects at IVC, they need $2.6 million to finalize their access controls. So a total of $5.6 million. Then we have scheduled maintenance projects. You see there at IVC, there's $500,000 for scheduled maintenance projects, and then the remaining $5.6 million is going to Saddleback for painting, upgrading their domestic water system, and really replacing their utility distribution system and updating their 12 kV system. Is Kim on now? Not yet?
She's on.
Oh, she's muted. All right. Renovation and other facilities related projects. These are the minor projects. So we have
a couple for IVC, lighting upgrades, and then rebuilding the classroom wing and lab, the B200. This is for chemistry labs. And then for SC, we have some site work at the outfall, and this is really the stormwater drainage. The last piece that ties into the stadium work. We have some parking lot renovations, and then renovations of the quad and the Arboretum Trail, as well as a warehouse canopy for the IVC campus for a total of $5.4 million. All right, so technology projects. We have our 3 categories for our technology projects. Category A, this is our ongoing maintenance for our SIS, which is our student information system, and then our Workday, which is our HR and finance system. Category B are other district-wide projects. So we have things such as data backup, cloud services, enhancements to My Academic Plan, as well as the student information system. And then category C are the campus-specific projects, and these are primarily desktop and classroom refreshes. So you see at Saddleback, almost $6.4 million. There's also includes an infrastructure upgrade, wireless access points, and then a network refresh. And then at IVC, there's the $1.9 million is for desktops. They want to make the Live Oak Terrace have technology capabilities, and then they have a couple marquees that they want to do. So a total of $16 million for technology projects. So that concludes the presentation. We will open it up to any questions that you have.
Okay, again, this is item 6.2 on the agenda, so I'll entertain a motion and a second on item 6.2.
So moved.
Motion from trustee Hall,
Second, I was muted. Second, or Bobby could second, doesn't matter.
and then I have a request to speak from trustee Lang.
Yes, thank you. This was a subject that I know I exchanged some emails with the chancellor about today as well. Again, it's kind of a recurring theme in tonight's discussions, and that is the uncertainty in my mind in terms of where we're going to be from a future budget standpoint once the full effect of COVID-19 is felt. I think there's a set, from the information that I received, I certainly get the sense that we will be fine for this current year, but a little, the future, particularly next year, is a lot more uncertain. And so I'm wondering whether we ought to be taking a more nuanced approach to commitments that we're making. Do those that, you know, we absolutely are, you know, committed, need to be made. Some that are perhaps a little less urgent, we may want to hold off on until we understand a little bit better how our district may be affected financially. So I'll leave it at that for now, but I may want to chime back in on this subject.
Okay, trustee Jamal.
Yeah, I heard Dave's question. I guess I had a similar concern. I appreciate the mentioning of the teeter plan. I was very unhappy with the way the county, particularly the treasurer, tax collector, handled the issue of property taxes and the fees associated with them, or the penalties. I believe she did not handle that well, and neither did the Board of Supervisors. Ultimately, I think after, in essence, forcing property tax payers who were in challenging situation, forcing them to pay, and then after they paid, then finally telling them, well, they're not going to get penalized. So it was not handled well at all from the county, in my view. But my understanding is that we are insulated from that because of the teeter plan. So I wanted to have Anne Marie or Kim expand a little bit on what the teeter plan means, and to Dave's point, what it will mean next year as well.
Dan Walsh
Right.
made a comment in the chat. Can we recognize him?
We should be able to.
Well, I can answer the question. So, Tim, to answer your question, yes, we are part of the teeter plan. As Kim mentioned, as of towards the end of April, we have received 97% of our secured property taxes that has been assessed. And the cash that we've received to date is 5% above where we were last year. We are expecting the increase in what we've built into this budget and the BARC allocation that you see is about a 3.9% increase for next year in assessed value. We think that could be on the low side, but that is the number that the county auditor controller uses and provided to us. Historically, the last few years, we've seen it well above 5%. So I think we're taking a conservative look at our property taxes, and I don't anticipate